Throughout history, the ancestry of Jesus has been a subject of both scholarly research and deep contemplation. Tracing his lineage, as documented in the biblical genealogies, reveals a fascinating tapestry of individuals whose backgrounds and heritages reflect the diversity and complexity of the ancient Near East. Among the most notable ancestors are Judah, Ruth, and King David. Each of these figures lived in times and places characterized by cultural intersections, migrations, and intermingling of peoples. This context invites us to explore the possibility that Jesus' ancestry included African or Black bloodlines, a topic that both honors the multicultural roots of biblical history and challenges us to rethink long-held assumptions. To begin, it is essential to consider the geographical and historical realities of the ancient world. The lands of Canaan, Israel, Egypt, and surrounding regions were crossroads of civilizations, trade routes, and migratory paths. People moved, interacted, and intermarried across these lands for centuries. The Mediterranean basin, the Nile Valley, and the Arabian Peninsula were not isolated. Rather, they formed a continuous web of human contact. This interconnectedness is evident in the stories of many biblical characters, including those in Jesus' genealogy. Judah, one of the 12 sons of Jacob and the eponymous ancestor of the tribe of Judah, stands at the foundation of this lineage. His story is intertwined with that of Tamar, a Canaanite woman who became the mother of his twin sons, Perez and Zerah. The Canaanites were indigenous to the Levant, a region we now call the Eastern Mediterranean, which included peoples of diverse phenotypes and cultures. Ancient Canaan was not a monolithic society. It harbored a mix of Semitic and possibly African-descended communities, owing to its proximity to Egypt and trade with Nubia and other African kingdoms. Tamar's identity as a Canaanite suggests that the bloodline of Judah incorporated the genetic heritage of the peoples native to that region, a population whose appearance and ancestry would have been shaped by generations of interaction with neighboring African and Asian populations. Moving forward in the genealogy, we encounter Ruth, perhaps one of the most celebrated women in the Bible. Ruth was a Moabite, hailing from the land of Moab, east of the Dead Sea. The Moabites themselves were descendants of Lot, Abraham's nephew, but like many ancient peoples, their population was not isolated. The Moabite territory was adjacent to Edom, Ammon, and within reach of the trade routes leading south toward Arabia and Africa. Furthermore, the story of Ruth underscores the inclusive nature of Israel's heritage. She was a foreigner who, through loyalty and love, became the great-grandmother of King David. This inclusion of a Moabite woman signals that the bloodline leading to Jesus was not restricted to a single ethnic or racial group, but was open to the broader world around Israel. King David, the most famous monarch of ancient Israel, represents the apex of this lineage. His ancestry, as recorded in the genealogies, includes not only Judah and Ruth, but also others whose backgrounds are less well documented, leaving room for speculation about their origins. David's own life was shaped by constant interaction with neighboring peoples, Philistines, Amalekites, Egyptians, and others. The royal house of Israel, like other dynasties of the ancient Near East, was likely influenced by alliances and marriages with neighboring nations. Such practices would have introduced new genetic elements into the family line, further diversifying its heritage. The broader historical context supports the plausibility of African or Black ancestry within Jesus' genealogy. The ancient Near East was a melting pot of cultures and peoples. Egypt, just to the southwest of Israel, had deep connections with the African continent, including Nubia and Kush. The Hebrew Bible itself recounts stories of individuals and families moving to and from Egypt, most notably Abraham, Joseph, and the entire nation of Israel during the Exodus. Over the centuries, these migrations brought Africans and their descendants into the heart of Israelite society. Moreover, the biblical narrative references prominent figures of African descent, such as Zipporah, the Cushite wife of Moses. The presence of Cushites, people from the region south of Egypt, encompassing modern-day Sudan and Ethiopia, within the biblical story suggests that African heritage was not foreign to the Israelites. Indeed, the Hebrew Bible generally regards such connections with respect and significance. It is important to understand that the concept of race as it is known today did not exist in the ancient world. However, phenotypic diversity, differences in skin color, hair texture, and facial features would have been apparent among the peoples of the Near East and Africa. The boundaries between black and non-black were likely far more fluid and less rigidly defined than in later periods. Given the interconnections between Egypt, Canaan, and surrounding regions, it is plausible that the ancestors of Jesus included individuals with African ancestry, including those who would be described today as black. Turning to the genealogies recorded in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, we see a deliberate effort to trace Jesus' lineage through both Joseph and Mary, highlighting his descent from David and, by extension, from Judah and Ruth. These genealogies underscore the mixed and multicultural nature of his ancestry. The inclusion of women such as Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah, a Hittite, further illustrates the diverse backgrounds woven into the fabric of Jesus' family tree. Each of these women came from different nations or ethnicities, and their integration into the lineage of David and Jesus is a testament to the inclusive vision of the biblical story. The presence of Rahab, for example, a woman from Jericho, a Canaanite city, demonstrates the openness of Israel's genealogy to those from outside the traditional boundaries of the nation. Similarly, Bathsheba, whose husband Uriah was a Hittite, reflects the intermingling of different peoples within the royal house. These stories point to a lineage that was not pure in the sense of being isolated from other ethnic groups, but rather one that was enriched by its connections to the wider world. The question of what it means to have black bloodlines in this context is both complex and significant. Ancient Israelites, Canaanites, Moabites, and Egyptians were all part of the genetic and cultural landscape of the ancient Near East. The populations of Egypt and Nubia, in particular, were known for their dark skin, as depicted in ancient art and described in historical records. Interactions between the Israelites and their African neighbors were frequent and profound. Given this reality, it is reasonable to infer that the bloodline of Jesus included African ancestry, whether through direct descent from individuals of known African origin or through the intermingling of peoples over generations. Recent advances in genetics and archaeology further support this view. Studies of ancient DNA from the Levant reveal a complex picture of migration and admixture among populations from the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. The genetic diversity of the region in biblical times was likely considerable, and the movement of peoples ensured that no group remained isolated. While it is impossible to reconstruct the exact genetic makeup of Jesus or his ancestors, the available evidence points to a heritage that was both diverse and reflective of the broader human story. The significance of this understanding goes beyond historical curiosity. Recognizing the multicultural and multiracial roots of Jesus' ancestry invites us to see the biblical narrative in a new light. It challenges modern assumptions about race and identity, reminding us that the boundaries we draw today are the product of more recent history. In the world of the Bible, kinship, faith, and shared values mattered more than skin color or ethnicity. The inclusion of outsiders, Canaanites, Moabites, Hittites, and others within the family of Israel anticipates the universal message that would later be at the heart of Jesus' teaching. Moreover, this perspective has profound implications for contemporary discussions about representation and inclusion. For centuries, Jesus has been depicted in art and culture as a European figure, often with features that reflect the societies in which these images were created. Yet the reality of his ancestry, as revealed by history and scripture, is far more diverse. Recognizing the African and multicultural roots of Jesus' lineage can be a powerful affirmation for people of all backgrounds, especially those who have been marginalized or excluded from traditional narratives. This broader understanding also enriches our appreciation of the biblical story. It reminds us that the message of hope, redemption, and love proclaimed by Jesus was rooted in a history of diversity, migration, and openness to the stranger. The stories of Judah, Ruth, and David are not tales of isolation, but of connection, of families and nations coming together, overcoming barriers, and forging new identities. In this sense, the ancestry of Jesus is a microcosm of the human story itself. Exploring the ancestry of Jesus through the lens of historical, biblical, and scientific evidence leads us to a deeper appreciation of the richness and diversity of his heritage. The stories of Judah, Ruth, and David are emblematic of a broader pattern of interconnection and inclusion that defines the biblical narrative. Against the backdrop of the ancient Near East, a region characterized by movement, exchange, and intermingling, the possibility that Jesus' ancestors carried African or Black bloodlines is not only plausible, but likely. This understanding invites us to embrace a more inclusive vision of history, one that honors the contributions of all peoples to the story of faith. It challenges us to move beyond narrow definitions of identity and to recognize the shared humanity at the heart of the biblical tradition. In doing so, we affirm the message of unity and love that lies at the core of Jesus' life and teaching. A message that transcends boundaries of race, ethnicity, and nation to embrace all people as children of God. As we reflect on the stories of Judah, Ruth, and David, we are reminded that the lineage of Jesus is a story of hope born out of diversity. It is a story that speaks to the power of inclusion, the beauty of difference, and the enduring strength of faith. By acknowledging the African and multicultural roots of Jesus' ancestry, we honor the full richness of the biblical narrative and embrace the universal vision that has inspired generations. In summary, the ancestors of Jesus, Judah, Ruth, David, and others, lived in a world where boundaries were porous, cultures intermingled, and diversity was the norm. The historical and biblical evidence suggests that African and Black bloodlines were likely present in his genealogy, reflecting the complex reality of the ancient Near East. This recognition invites us to celebrate the rich tapestry of humanity that shaped the life and message of Jesus, and to carry forward his vision of love, inclusion, and unity for all. And if you're still here, maybe your soul just got touched in the deepest place. At Tales of Black, every story is a ritual, a reminder that some memories are not written in books, but in bone and blood. If this story stirred something in you, share it with someone still wondering. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. And if there's a legend, a memory, or a haunting you want told, leave it in the comments. Maybe your story is the next one summoned in the ritual.